So I'm at the Oxford Real Farming Conference 2019 and I am delighted to be with Matt Dunwell, who is fitting in a very swift interview in his lunch, so he's multitasking, drinking soup, because this is an incredibly busy conference and it's hard to do it all. So this morning I came to the second of a biofertiliser presentation. You did one in 2017.
That's right.
And from that we ran a couple of articles on because I thought it was fascinating. So first of all, can you tell us a little bit about the difference between compost teas and biofertilisers?
Okay. So compost teas are around. Well, there's two things. So compost tea can just be like putting nettles in water. So that could be a tea. Aerated compost tea is about bubbling oxygen through a solution with microbes in it, which you're feeding with a bit of sugar. And that creates an explosion of biological growth, and you create an unstable, but as long as you use it fresh, it's fine, and you spray it on as a foliar spray, and it coats the plants with microbes. The biofertilizer is about more like making wine. So it's a ferment, an anaerobic ferment, and you have a mineral base, so you're feeding your microbes with minerals, and the microbes are going through several generations, and each time they explode and then die, they create different types of nutrition that is stored in the biofertilizer in a stable form. So you can use biofertilizer over a period of years, really. And what you're not really necessarily spraying live microbes, you're spraying the spores of the microbes and the spores of the fungi and the cysts of the bacteria, which then reawaken when they come back into contact with oxygen again. Does that sort of describe it?
Yep, that's fantastic. So one of the potential critiques of the talk this morning was from someone who said, how do you know if the growth that's coming through and the health of the plant isn't just the water in the mix? How do you know it's those active compounds, the hormones and the minerals of biofertilizers?
Yeah, and that's a good question, because there are, it's hard to find proper peer-assessed reviewed measurements of the use of aerated compost teas and biofertilizer. And what tends to happen is that when you're applying these foliar sprays, they're applied with water as a carrier, and that confuses the test results. So I agree with that point, but what we've found with the biofertilizer is we're measuring things like nutrient density in the crop, and that's a different metric from just plant growth. And where we've been using it, so where we've been teaching in Africa, so Juanfran's been in Kenya, Uganda, Zimbabwe, about 7 or 8 different African countries. The growth difference there is so marked that it's not about extra water. It's sort of my worry about the work that's happening in Africa is that the adoption rate is so fast from farmers that Juanfran's working with. It's almost like running ahead of us, out of control. So there's a real demand for more information about it. There isn't a sort of like, I'm not sure whether this works or not.
So my next question is, one of the most empowering aspects of this is that you can make them yourself, that you're not shopping in the agricultural store. I mean, it's very difficult to put a figure on it, but say for a UK orchardist who's a cider maker, how much money would that save, or to actually make your own?
Yeah.
And the kit's not complicated either.
No.
So it's just an indication of savings for.
Well, I think with James Aitchison, with his article he wrote in the magazine, he was spending in the region of £8,000 to £10,000 a year of his inputs to manage, I think, 10,000 trees. Rough figures, off the top of my head. And he was saying last year that had come down to about 3,000. And when I spoke to him 2 or 3 months ago, he was saying actually that 3,000 figure is too high. It's come down below that now. Yeah. So he's really, he's sourcing a lot of whey from a cheese maker, and he's getting manure from somewhere, I'm not quite sure where, but most of the inputs he's getting are incredibly cheap to get hold of.
And for the gardener, we can scale this right down to 5 litres.
Yeah, absolutely.
So a little bit of ash, a little bit of milk, a little bit of molasses, and water and manure.
Exactly.
So
and you
simple.
can make it in a demijohn.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah, so instead of wine,
you
need to be making biofertiliser.
But don't get them mixed up.
No. And this is the probiotics of the soil, essentially, isn't it?
I think that's the bit that excites me, is that there is essentially there's a toolkit that it's not just biofertiliser. There's bokashi, which is like a compost that's only been digested for a short amount of time. So you're creating that really microbially active phase of compost and then using it in the soil when it's really, really juvenile. And you have to be careful you don't burn your plant roots with it, but if it's in the soil, it really gets the microbes going in the soil. So there's bokashi, there's biofertiliser, there's working with cow manures, and then there's a range of things like ash brews for pest control. So most of the work is probiotic. Some of it is about targeting pests, but using materials that the farmer can make themselves that degrade into fertiliser, and that's the key. So, for instance, with using in fall armyworm in Zimbabwe, the ash and the soap will degrade into minerals that are useful to the plant and phosphate. You know, so it's a nice way of targeting pests.
Last question.
Yeah.
Where do we learn more?
Thanks, Maddy. Well, Ragmans Lane is running a farm on Monday. That's probably not going to be much good for this one. There's another course in May, I think May the 11th, a 3-day course.
As well,
and there's a book that you can get through the website.
Okay, we'll keep the website.
Great.
Thank you very much, Matt.
Pleasure.